So this project emerges from our ESPA funded 2013 project. Is called Eco-Poor. We're looking into the institutions for urban poor's access to ecosystem services and emphasis on water and green structures in two capital cities, Dhaka and Dar es Salaam. So this project, as probably most of other speakers saying, you consider this is work in progress. David probably sitting there as co-author, but surely sometimes you will that we're shaking heads that this is still work in progress. So bear with us. But what we are going to be presenting here is the conceptualization of how institutions can be a lens to look into some of the hard physical science measurement of ecosystem disservices, the water pollution, the soil pollution, and these sort of things, and how this is really affecting the low-income settlement. But the emphasis here is the institutional conceptualization. So, what is our starting point? Our starting point is the different tradition, but particularly one tradition here is attributing the access to ecosystem services or low level of access to ecosystem services and high level of disservices in low-income settlement as a function of wealth-based outcome. So that is to say, here if you see that poor urban people is likely on this curve to be having low level of access or a high level of disservices. And the notion is that if you go into well-off settlement, those is sort of improving. So there is a notion feeling that, okay, if the country becomes wealthy or the city becomes wealthy, and people probably will move upward in terms of income. So that's our point of departure. We want to reframe this wealth-based understanding to this. What we are proposing here is that, okay, this is one way of seeing, but the other way of seeing that if we do manage to get these people, low-income settlements, better access to ecosystem services and reduce disservices. So how do we effectively see that the whole ecosystem improvement, that ultimately also benefits the well-off or better-off settlements? That's the zone we are talking about, the zone of progressive institutional arrangement. By progressive institutional arrangement, we are saying not only can we make substantial improvement here, but the overall city, overall citizenship is getting benefit from it. So that's why our study focus is on this low-income settlement. Okay, what do we mean by progressive institutional arrangement? Here we try to explain in simple terms. On the left, you will see that we are trying to say that this is the practice of coming together. That is the collective action. How people on the ground and different sectors come together. And on the bottom right is the process of doing together. How different people and different institutions can act together. So, and that is called institutional co-production. And we are trying to see the complementarity between these two and how we can really institutionalize. That's what we are seeing, the progressive institutional arrangement. That's our definition. Okay, there is a bit of more definition in terms of looking into what is collective action and what is the institutional co-production. As I was trying to explain, this is the people's self-help mode of coming together, helping each other, helping their basic concerns in low-income settlement. And co-production is often defined as the provisioning of the public goods through regular long-term relationships between public agencies and the groups of citizens. Now, this collective action is a commitment driven. People do commit. Initially, they commit to cooperate, then they commit to coordinate, and then they also commit to collaboration. That's a progressive development in their coming together science. And the partnership driven is the core of the co-production. Here, all different parties are going to be making contribution depending on their position in the production of the services. The final point is interesting, is that collective action can provide a basis for consensus building, and then co-production requires that consensus. So this is where we're thinking that the potential complementary lies. So now how do we sort of bring these, the progressive institutional arrangement within the context of low-income settlements, provisioning of safe water and sanitation? So we begin with first telling the vertical axis where we see that the collective action, how these benefits of collective action goes from low level to high level. And this is the progression. We're saying that cooperation, coordination, and collaboration. And if we go into look into low-income settlements, there are two different forms of cooperation. At the very basic level is the episodic cooperation. People coming together, maybe when there is an eviction threat, they come together, fend off the eviction, and then they probably disband. But then there are organized cooperation, when people really establish something that keeps on going and try to solve their problem. That's an improvement. The upper level is the systematic coordination, when really they are networking with across different settlements and perhaps also vertically. And the final stage really is the systematic and strategic collaboration, when they do develop strategies to collaborate. And then the horizontal line is we are calling the institutional co-production. One way of measuring the level of co-production is how many of the low-income settlement dwellers can be brought under those initiatives. And then we populate here with different sorts of institutional arrangement within this space. Here, I think a very low level of collective action and co-production is the private. Individual households, individual people are trying to sort out their own problem. That's the low level of co-production. But the higher level is when low-income peoples becomes federations. Then we'll have the higher level of collective action, but this not necessarily is the higher level of co-production, because they still need to negotiate, still need to bring the municipality agencies and other agencies to help them. And then extreme right, where you will find that elite deals, the political patronage and all sorts of different things happens, which is good in terms of co-production, but they are not necessarily collective actions on looking from the side of poor urban people. At the center is what we often think about in NGOs and non-profit sort of institutional mode. And then this is where the claim groups who has the either association of labor, association of disabled people who has a particular claim they can make. And on the top right is where we are seeing the utopian, you can say. It's very difficult to get, but this is the coordinated agencies, both people's federation and both sort of institutional cooperation happening with them. This is how we see, okay, this is the zone of progressive institutional arrangement in our views. And of course, this is the desirability, but also as we see some of the empirical data coming to support this one, as we see that there could be happening some improvement here, maybe some improvement there, but it's very hard to find things happening over there. So in terms of method, we are again studying two different cities, Dhaka and Dar, but this presentation draws on some findings from Dhaka only. We also draw city-wide census and surveys of low-income settlements, and we are lucky to have this time series between 2006 and 2010. And also, there is representative service in Dhaka's low-income settlements. So these are the city-wide data we are getting, but also we are studying detailed 5 different settlements in Dhaka. Just to quickly take you to what's happening in Dhaka in terms of low-income settlements. This is one of the very latest thing came out, showing the distribution of low-income settlements from 2006 to 2010. Now, we'll be sort of calling this as bustis, which is the local term for low-income settlements. So, over 10,000, there are over 10,000 of these bustis, and a quarter of Dhaka's 14 million plus population live in these bustis. Interestingly, over 70% of these people live in settlements which are built on private land, and then less than 30% live on public settlements. This is a distinction. One could say that these are the squatter settlements in terms of definition, but these are really privately built low-income settlements. And the final point is that only about 15% of Dhaka's bustis are accessible to external service providers such as NGOs. Only 15%. That's what you know. Okay. Now this is an interesting set of data which will sort of form a key basis for analysis. On the left column is the type So what we will see that you were already differentiating between public and private, and there are some others, but there is a subcategory is interesting. The public settlement could be authorized where city corporation is deliberately putting their port plus employee and other people over there. And then second is that unauthorized but accessible to donors and NGOs. These are the settlements donors can go, NGOs can provide support, and there is sort of unofficial negotiation between the owners of the land. But this is critical in unauthorized and not accessible to NGOs and donors. We would like to highlight that the NGOs can only enter into 11%, but this is even greater areas they couldn't go. And moreover, this is the private where almost 70% of dwellers live, and NGOs do not have entrance to this also. Okay? Now, what is happening in terms of some of the data? So this is a compilation of data in terms of the availability of water supply. We are not really saying this is safe water, because this is the thing will come from our analysis of hard physical science. But at present, we're still on a hypothetical level, saying that water supply, but we are sort of trying to categorize here, what is the preferable kind of water quality accepted. DWASA stand for Dhaka Water Authority, Water and Sewerage Authority, and then Dhaka City Corporation, and then NGOs, DWASA and CBO water points, and then landowners on selling of DWASA supply. And this is particularly the private landowners, private settlements. So we're thinking these four sort of in order of desirability. But then when it comes from water supply from informal private, water donation and water begging, and then private open wells, these are sort of open for real substantial concern. And you can see that the 5 different settlements has this sort of figure. Third is the public unauthorized settlements where NGOs cannot enter. You can see that there is quite a lot of red areas. And then public unauthorized where NGOs have entered, there is still quite a lot of concern. Private rented, and then private quasi-owners is those settlements where NGOs, the land ownership has gone to some extent to the private dwellers. This shows, okay. So this is some of the picture of NGOs-led water point. This is a picture of shallow open well. Okay, this is how we repopulate the diagram. So you can see that concerned area is here, about 30%. The most of the private is here, and there is a bit of NGO and a bit of claim groups, but we don't have anything happening here, neither here, in terms of water. Similar sort of sewerage facilities. The public settlement, authorized settlement has this sort of better level. Public unauthorized has the big, but there is some. When unauthorized, not accessible is really black, and then also the quasi owners is also really black. Okay, these are some of the sewerage facilities that you may consider black, open hanging latrines, and these are NGO provided, but still the condition is pretty bad. We come again, sort of similar sort of picture is all happening towards the here and over here, but not really vertical movement in that sense. So these are 5 key reasons why we're sort of having this problem. Is that urban port seems to be systematically excluded from the policy, particularly water supply and sewerage policy. There are some improvement, not as a city-wide. The civil society and community partnership is politically and socially constrained, socially limited. As you can see that they cannot go into more than 11%, 12% of the settlements. And the grassroots organizations are really not being bought into the whole process. There are some organizations, but there is no federation in the country, in the city. And then private bosti developers are really difficult to work with for NGOs, even for the government. They have their own incentive mechanism. So it's one of they either self-exclude themselves, or they are not interested really in that one. And finally, the association of grassroots groups. It's truly difficult to establish. So far, it hasn't really happened in Dhaka. Okay, the final point. I think I will start with the statement by an NGO. Key informant is saying that donors and NGOs in Dhaka have entered into as many settlements as they could. The rest are either too politicized or they are privately owned, therefore not supportable. This sort of statement. But NGOs can only enter up to 13%. So there is a case for public donors and civil society organizations really to start thinking about how to reach the other one. Our progressive institution management conceptualization may or could help those excluded if this turns into practice.